var väl en fräsig tur med en tung Merca. Från sommarens äventyr med Muskelmercan i USA, närmare bestämt i Nashville. Där vi var och hälsade på Matt Kwiek på Kwiek Classics. En otroligt trevlig kille som är en fullkomlig Mercedes-tok. Och han är jävligt bra på det han gör. Han bygger om klassiska Mercor på löpande band. Nej, inte löpande band, det är hantverk rakt igenom. Med både sån kompressormotor som vi har i Muskelmercan och naturally aspirated V8s. Alltså icke överladdade motorer. Förlåt det där med svengelskan. Häng med in i Matthews verkstad så ska ni få träffa en kille som älskar bilar, älskar bilbyggande och är riktigt bra på det. Nu drar vi till Nashville.
Also, that's my daily driver, Matt. What do you think? You only seen it on pictures.
Yeah, I have. It looks pretty damn good.
But to start, we're not going to talk about this first. You'll have a look at it, because we're in your workshop. And is it Kwiek Classic?
Kwiek Classics.
Kwiek Classics.
Yep.
And how does all of this start? We got an Italian up here, and we have a pagoda there.
Right, there's a vacuum in Nashville of people that are willing and able to work on little German cars. So
I saw you on TV. You put M113Ks into classic Mercedes. How did you get that idea? What was the first build you did?
the first M113 swap I did was actually my 95 E320 station wagon.
Okay.
It had a 3.6 AMG in it, M104, same as that.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody wanted to buy the engine from me, and I found a cheap M113 in the junkyard, and everybody said it couldn't be done. So I said, I'll figure out why they say that, and either I will find a way around it or I will fail miserably. So yeah, no, I found a way around it.
So the M113K was the first sort of swap you did, or no?
No, not even close.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. My first car was a 190E 2.6. First I put a 3.0 in it, then I put a 3.6 in it.
Okay.
Then I took that drivetrain and I put it in my 124 wagon because the 190 rusted apart. And then that 124 wagon, I put 100,000 miles on it, took that drivetrain out to sell, put the 5.4 in it, had that for a while, then that rusted out. I lived in Michigan. Michigan is incredibly hard on cars.
Yeah.
So at that point, I took the 5.4 and the 6-speed from the wagon and I put those into a C43 AMG, which was fun, but honestly it was too fast. I sold it because I didn't want to get in trouble. And then it was actually for my wedding. I bought a 108 for my wedding because it seemed like the appropriate car.
Yeah.
And that car burnt a quart of oil every 50 miles. So, 80 kilometers. Yeah. And it was unacceptable. So 3 weeks to my wedding, I decided I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna do something about it. And I went down to the local junkyard and found a CLK 430 engine, which I bought for $300. And I brought it back and I made it work. And so yeah.
But you make it sound so easy. But I still have, now when you sort of count through all your cars, why Mercedes? Why? What was the thing that hooked you?
My first car was a 190E. It broke down immediately. I couldn't afford to have anyone else fix it. I hadn't even gotten my first paycheck yet from my first job. And so I learned to fix it myself. And everybody talks about these cars like there's something special to working on them. There's some different way that they're put together. And that might be true, but if it's what you learn from the beginning, everything else seems lesser quality. The engineering is not as good on any other brand. The quality of components and of parts is not as good on any other brand. The way things are thought through on a Mercedes just makes a lot more sense than anything else.
Oh, that's great. And I should also say that this is an important part, because last summer when I was going on the first big road trip with this one, I had this whining noise for quite a while, but like a month before I left, it really started to sound bad. And I sent you a clip. I said, "Do you think it's okay to drive around Europe?" And you said, "No, you should not. You should not drive that car."
Yeah.
And you were right. It was the oil pickup, just like you said. So
that's what they do.
Yeah. So, but still, I can only agree. I mean, it's a fantastic car, or engine, I should say. But I sort of, not I, but the people that built the car for me, we sort of cheated, because this is basically a body swap. I mean,
Yes.
it's all the metal. I would say like 70% of all the metal in the car is new, as is the interior. So it's not just a swap. I think it's pretty nicely done. But
It looks incredibly well done.
But the main thing is that we have the whole ECU is still in there.
Yeah.
And a couple of guys that are really good took away all the stuff that needs to be taken away.
Yeah.
But you do not do that.
I do.
You do. So
Yes.
you keep the original?
Yeah.
ECU?
Original ECU, original TCU, and yeah, it all works.
Because I was going to ask you, how do you do it with, with the gearbox? Do you have separate? But then you have the same stuff. But then don't you have to spend a lot of time with the computer as well, or with the controller?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a guy, Mercedes Swap Shop. He's over in California. He handles all of the. He takes a factory ECU and prepares it such that it no longer needs the drive authorization, the EIS, the key, really, so that all of my swaps use the original key that came with the car, not the new style key. And then I've got another guy, Sound German Automotive in Seattle, who does a drivetrain controller that allows it so that the engine and the transmission are fed all of the correct information, so that they don't know that they're not in the car they belong in.
Ah, wow.
Yeah.
That's great, because I mean now it's an amazingly working car. But I want to see. So this pagoda, how far long is it?
This pagoda is about a third of the way through the process right now. The first 25% or so is the biggest. From what you can see, it's the largest part of the build, right? That's where we get the engine in, get it mounted, get everything lined up the way it wants to be, make sure everything fits, make things fit when they need it. And then from there on, it's wiring and plumbing and so on and so forth to just make everything work. This is a kind of a special case. As you can see from the wiring, this is not an ordinary. Normally I use a factory harness, but for this one we're building our own harness because this car will run on Haltech. The owner did not want the factory ECU for this. The owner did not want the factory transmission that came with this engine. He wanted the older style transmission with the less electronics. Not my choice. I tried to convince him otherwise, but here we are. So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
And we are about at the point where we're going to start wiring in the Haltech.
Okay. But you have done that before, aftermarket control.
Yeah, so in the beginning, that's all I used before I figured out how to use the factory stuff.
Okay.
So my first 2-3 cars, yeah, were all Haltech.
Okay. There's a lot of wiring then, obviously. I mean,
Yeah,
the more modern the...
You can see how much, this is just the Haltech harness.
Yeah.
And then you still have the rest of the body harness to go with it.
Yeah. So you prefer the original Mercedes OEM style, sort of, if you can?
It depends on the circumstance, right? For most, especially for customer builds, factory is best. Everybody wants their car to drive like factory, and the main thing about the Haltech is you can get a lot more out of it, but when you're already taking a 450, 500 horsepower engine and putting it in a 50-some-year-old car, that's more than enough power.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need any more out of it. The factory ECU is plenty.
Yeah.
So.
And about that, how about, the back end on this car?
Yeah. So this one's waiting on an axle.
Okay.
I've had a company that's been rebuilding the 280 SEL 4.5 axles, and I've done a few of those, and we've discovered they don't hold up. So I have Actually, my car, this car, is at the chassis shop right now, getting a whole different axle put in it. It should be done this week. Okay. I'm kind of sad it's not here yet. But you probably saw the gray 108 out front.
It's beautiful.
That also has a 113K in it.
No.
And that's waiting to go to the chassis shop as soon as my car gets back.
Wow. To get another axle.
Yeah.
So would you reveal what kind of axle it is?
This one is a Ford 8.8.
Okay.
That's been modified quite a bit to use all of the factory Mercedes suspension and factory Mercedes brakes and all of that. So the whole idea is to keep the cars as original as possible, but make sure they'll stand up to the test of time.
Yeah. Wow. And this will be a beauty for sure. So how strong is this 3.6 AMG?
They're factory rated at 286. With a tune, you can get them over 300 pretty easily.
Okay.
I've heard about people getting them as up to 350 horse. I had one, I had it in my wagon for 4 years.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic engine.
And can't we have a look at the chassis as well?
Yeah.
Is this your car or is it a customer
No, this
car?
is a customer car.
Okay. This is so beautiful.
So this is an ongoing mechanical restoration, but this engine now has higher compression pistons, it has hotter cams. The fuel injection looks stock, but it's not stock. So I'm doing what needs to be done to make it run. This should be approximately 220 horsepower,
Okay.
Whereas the US models were 167 factory.
Okay. So this is basically a tune and fix up on an original Cosworth.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you have back there? Is that all your? I mean,
this is one I just finished.
wow. That's a beauty.
So this is a 1989 300 CE. This was imported from Spain. It's a factory 5-speed car. It's not an original AMG, but these are all the original AMG parts that somebody found and stuck on the car already.
It's beautiful. So what did you put in it?
One of my favorite things is if you looked at this car from any angle, anywhere on the car, you wouldn't know that anything is different until you look under the hood.
Whoa. Is it the 113 or?
Yep. This is a 5.4 M113 from a CLK 55.
Wow. That's great. But also, I should say, because I'm into old cars. This is, the installation is just magnificent. And did you use the original gearbox that came with? No.
No, this has the newer Mercedes 6-speed manual.
Okay. So it's 6-speed manual.
Yep. It still has the 5-speed knob on it, so you wouldn't know looking.
Oh, that's good.
But yes, it has 6.
This is just great. But how long, from when you got the car in here until you actually rolled it out, and it was, obviously there's some tuning. How long will it take you?
About 6 weeks generally. For this, obviously different chassis are more or less involved, like a 108 chassis or a 113 chassis are more involved. 124 and 126 chassis are a bit simpler to do. This car, I believe it took 6 weeks. And it's funny you mentioned there's tuning, but there isn't any tuning. I finished this car at 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. Sunday morning at 5 a.m. we got up, hopped in the car, drove it 250 miles to Atlanta to a show, drove it 250 miles back. No problems.
Ja, hörni, i vanliga fall så brukar jag hålla mig undan från provkörningar och provturer och sådär, för att av massor med olika skäl. Framförallt att vi har inte riktigt resurser att filma åkande bilar snyggt. Det är så många andra som gör det, så jag koncentrerar mig på att folk som har byggt bilarna eller renoverat dem eller samlat på dem, att de får berätta. Men nu sa Matt, du vill inte åka en sväng i den här Sleeper 124? Klart jag vill det. Så jag tänker vi åker ut och tar en sväng. But this is a muscle car if there ever was one. Yeah.
I would love to line this up next to one of the real hammers because I'm pretty sure this would win.
Yeah. Oh. And what did you do chassis-wise on this one?
It's all stock but upgraded. H&R springs, Bilstein shocks, upgraded sway bars. This is a factory limited slip car, which is fairly rare for these. Early on in the process, I would do every swap. I would do custom mounts, custom manifolds, one-off. Everyone would be a little bit different. But now at this point, I've more or less standardized them for most chassis. Okay. 108, 111, 124, 126, even 201. And so for those cars, I have a manufacturer I use in Detroit that builds manifolds to my design so that they fit those chassis. And for the motor mounts, I have jigs set up so that I can make as many as I need to, and they're not made to fit each car. So something like this, it used to be a 2.5, 3 month process, and that sort of stuff just cuts it down to 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah. For these.
Ja hörni, det är väl 44 grader i Nashville, men det är ingenting mot hur het jag kände mig efter att ha åkt en sväng med Matt i den här fantastiska 301 förvandlad med AMG-kostym, men framför allt med en M113 motor. Ingen kompressor, 6-växlad manuell låda. Fy fan vilken bil! Jag vill ha! Jag är ganska nöjd med Muskelmercan också. Nu fortsätter vårt äventyr här. Another pagoda.
Yes.
What kind of heart will this little baby get?
So this is actually, we're doing something a little different with this because primarily we put the modern engines in, but this one is going to be a period hot rod. Ooh. This is getting the 3.5 M116 from a 300 SEL 3.5.
Oh, so V8 still.
Yep, V8, 4-speed manual, that same one that you blew up.
Yeah.
But it's going to have higher compression, it's going to have hotter cams, it'll have electronic fuel injection, so it'll be good.
And there, when it comes to that, I mean, to me, just installing a fully functioning engine, that's the tough part. But do you also build the engines when you're
Yeah, as you can see, this is actually this is the engine.
Oh, wow.
The block is it's off being machined right now, but we have our fresh heads and all of our pistons and everything laid out here. So, yep, we're building the engine too.
Should we look outside as well because there were a couple of cars sitting there. But let's have a look outside. And you should also have to tell me about the 108 that's in the shop right now, or that you're waiting for.
Yeah.
So that is your personal car. And what did you put in it?
So that has a 5.4 M113. Originally it was that CLK 430 engine that I told you about, but it was kind of slow, so I took that out and I put a 5.4 in it with a 6-speed manual.
Okay. That sounds nice. And what about the chassis? Original front end still?
Yeah, original front end. I usually have to cut the front springs because the V8s weigh so much less than the old cast iron 6-cylinders. So that brings the nose back down, and then you put better shocks on it, and it actually drives quite nice.
Oh, that's great. And well, this looks like a Kasi at least. I guess it's not, or?
It is.
It is.
This is my personal, this is my track car. It's an 85 German market, 2.316. It's actually mostly stock, apart from the suspension, and it's running on a Heltec ECU.
Okay. And how strong is the Kasi, off the block?
I've never had it on a dyno. I would expect it to be, a little north of 200 at this point with some of the mods that I've done to it. Oh. But
it's a great car.
It's really just a handling car, right? It doesn't need that much power because of how well it handles.
And then you have a bunch of 124s here, or three of them actually.
So this is a 210, 113. This is a donor car. It was in a front end collision, so this one's just waiting for its time.
Yeah. That's a great engine. And over there, that's a 123 sitting over there, the red one.
Yeah, that's just a customer car, just a 300D in for some service.
Okay. But what would be your recommendation? I mean, if you're a Mercedes guy and you wanna do something fun. I mean, the 124s are. We can argue about that, but I think it might have been the best car ever built,
I won't argue with that.
I mean, it's just terrific. I mean, I've been in taxi cars that did like 300,000 kilometers.
Oh yeah, that's nothing. This has 500,000 miles on it.
Yeah, and they just keep on going. So yeah, and what is this?
This is a 500E.
Oh, okay.
500,000 mile 500E. I bought this car with a single intention. This car is getting the 6.2 liter M156.
Ooh.
It's on the stand in the shop right now. Yeah, I'm just waiting until I have time to start on it.
Yeah, but what would be your recommendation? Because what engine would you recommend?
It depends what you want to do with it. It's hard to go wrong with an M113 naturally aspirated. They are just such reliable stout engines. They're fairly fuel efficient, and they just go forever. You handle a few leaks and a couple parts that go bad, just take care of those before you put it in, and you can drive it for another 20, 30 years.
Wow.
So that's kind of, I don't do this to build show cars. I don't do this to build collector cars. I do this to build cars that people can drive. Yeah. And a lot of the cars that I built have gone into collections and that sort of thing. But really, I build them to drive. Yeah. And that's why I try to, whenever I finish a car, I try to put as many miles on it as I can. I did an M113 W201 chassis, 190E. I built that in October. As soon as I got done with it, I did 2,300 miles to Oregon. I did a 1,000-mile road rally and then visited some friends and then drove it all the way back. And that car is now getting fresh paint and fresh interior, and you'll see it later this year.
But let's have a look at the 108 out there, because it's a beauty. This is a beautiful car. Now, when we were forced to widen the fenders on my car, first it was, you know, because it couldn't be driven. But then I think it's so cool. But I don't know, this is just beautiful. And what kind of gearbox do you have on this one?
The same 722.6 Mercedes automatic.
Okay, so it's same as in my car, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow, this is great. But the back end on this one will be swapped then?
Yes. So this car is, I have driven it around some, but honestly, I'm terrified to drive it because this engine makes as much torque at idle as the original engine did at redline. Yeah. So it's driving it with this rear end in it. It's just a matter of time before something goes wrong.
How do you do with the whole cooling package? Because I mean, the original one, that's, you know, we have my car. There's the cooling for the oil is on one side and for the supercharger on the other side, because the package was like this big.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So this is actually the factory oil cooler from the car, hooked up to the engine. Aftermarket aluminum radiator. This does fine keeping the engine cool. There's an aftermarket AC, a dual pass AC condenser in here, and then you have the heat exchanger for the supercharger up front.
Wow.
And I use the factory cooling fans. They pull way more air than any aftermarket fan, so these fans are great.
This is an absolute beauty. And how much time would you say that you put into this car? Because you have your own as a sort of a...
Yeah, no, I could pull up the spreadsheet and tell you exactly, but I think I've got about 160 hours into this. Yeah. This car came here as a running, driving, completely stock. It's on air right now, but other than that, it was a completely stock.
So what do you do with the stock engines, the old iron horses?
Sell them if I can, but they're really not worth anything.
No.
That's kind of the trouble with them, is they all have issues. They're all 50-some-year-old engines now, so it's hard to sell them.
Yeah. And what more? Is this a C40 free? Or?
It is, yeah. I actually imported this from Germany a few months ago.
Okay.
This is my daily driver right now, just because it's reliable and has good air conditioning.
I still have to ask, I mean, you talked, I mean, you just line up all the dream builds I have, but do you have one, you know, that, you know, a model that would be really fun to swap engine and back end and everything in, that you haven't done yet? You said, you know, the 111 coupe, for instance, or something?
I've done a handful of those. I've done 111s, I've done 108s, I've done 113s, 124, 126, 201. I have a 116 coming soon, so that will get we haven't even decided which engine yet. Okay. It just depends on what you want out of it. If you want more fun, more excitement, more bragging rights, or if you just want something that'll be comfortable and reliable until the end of time.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll see. I would love to come back next year and see what you've done with all of your projects. Especially, I would like to see that car on your sweater there.
Yeah, I'm sad it's not here.
But that's not going to be sold ever, right?
No.
No.
No, it's number one. It'll stick around.
If you change your mind, please call me.
I'll let you know. Great. But I have a couple coming up. Nobody has really done much with the M156 yet, the 6.2 liter, after the 113K. So I've got a couple of those. I've got one that'll be going in my 500E. I've got one that'll be going in a wide body C126 560 SEC. Wow. That's in paint right now out at CMS. So once that ships back, it'll get the whole treatment.
Oh wow!
And then there's also a 300 SEL 6.3 that someone has already done a Red Pig clone on.
Oh,
but
wow.
The guy wants the M156 in it, so that will be coming soon.
Oh, that would be fun to see. Well, thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely.